Hello, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us. I see people streaming in to the webinar right now. We are about to get started. Really excited for today's topic. Lots of things are happening, big changes going on in the world of revenue operations, RevOps, as it will be called for the rest of this session. So really excited to chat about that. My name is Ian Walsh. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at ayeQ. ayeQ is a enterprise software company. We help B2B organizations improve their performance by streamlining and optimizing their revenue operations. We'll talk about what's going on and why that's relevant and why we're knowledgeable about that here in the session today. I'm your host. I am lucky to be joined by our founder and CEO, Dana Marxer. Dana is a veteran of the RevOps world, having approached this from an engineering perspective, as a practitioner, and as a CEO of a software company as well. And so she's got a ton of experience and insights into what's going on in the world of RevOps and particularly what's changing right now. As well as our Chief Revenue Officer, Jeremy Sharp, who brings to the table a wealth of experience from a go-to-market perspective, and is deeply versed in this universe as well. First, just a couple housekeeping notes. We are recording this session, so we will send a link out that you can share with your colleagues afterwards. We encourage questions. If you have questions, put them into the questions panel. We will take questions and cover those at the end of the session. So please put any questions you have in there. The title of this session is, defining or introducing RevOps automation. There is a fundamental shift going on in this universe, and I won't steal the thunder from Dana and Jeremy, but they're going to cover what's going on there, and we're going to really hone in on, whether you're in RevOps, where there's a lot of people on this call who are in RevOps, or if you're in other parts of the business or you're in the C-suite, what you need to be doing and thinking about this change as it's going on. So be ready for that. And as we go through this, think about, how this affects, your function and what you need to be either doing differently or what you need to be expecting or demanding of the people around you in your organization to help adapt to this shift. So with that said, let me turn this over to Dana. And I think she's going to start off by chatting just a little bit about how we've gotten to the point of what RevOps is and where it's going.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ian, and good to see you guys. So I did see that as the folks were coming into the call, lots of RevOps titles, as well as some CROs and some CMOs. And it's a great audience. This is a very, very relevant topic as RevOps becomes this, really significant space. I think RevOps is one of the most one of the fastest growing titles on LinkedIn in B2B. So it is a burgeoning space here. But before we talk about RevOps automation, which is this shift happening in the RevOps space, let's make sure we align on how we define RevOps itself. So, let's just acknowledge that the entire analyst community has been defining RevOps as a strategic function that, when it is created, is producing tremendous results. So on the right there, you can see 3x faster growth, much higher sales productivity and marketing efficiency. So the key here is how they are defining RevOps. So that is not just happening by renaming existing sales ops and marketing ops functions. That it is a fundamentally different discipline. And so let's take a look at how Gartner is defining that. You see on the left there, the Gartner model. So they orient and bring together these key functions, that the tech stack, RevOps processes, cross-functional alignment. So they call this commercial coalition. Love the analyst terms. And this interconnection of workflows that surrounds this central key source of truth, what they call this communal data. And most importantly, and you're going to find this is the same output for RevOps automation, is this intelligence-led decisions. So this is not, the old way of just getting lots of data and hoping you can figure out what you're supposed to do. But the RevOps function is actually shifting towards this directional organization that has a seat at the executive table because it's fundamental to optimizing resources and the efficiency of the organization. So from our perspective, as we've been in this space a long time, and one of the fundamental pieces of RevOps automation is the design of performance. So when performance is designed, so we have our financial objectives, we have our strategic objectives of the organization. Well, what does our performance need to look like to hit those objectives? And so there's this key piece of design that underpins RevOps automation that respectfully, we feel like it's not significant or present in Gartner's current RevOps model. So let's go on into the Forrester model. Let's see what Forrester says. So this model is much more focused on the functions of RevOps centered around customer value. So they also have tech stack, workflows, aligned collaboration across functions, and really importantly, that intelligence-driven decision-making. So they align with Gartner there. They also add the concept of what I said before on the previous slide, which is optimized resources, which we would agree is an outcome of a true RevOps discipline. So they suggest that all of these are key requirements of RevOps if you're going to have a commercial impact on the organization. So my question is, how many of you guys out there have these models fully functional in your organization? I would say probably few, really, if any. So why is doing this? Why has it been so hard when Gartner years ago was saying, all of these organizations are going to have a RevOps discipline? Why aren't we there yet? And so, Jeremy, I'm going to hand that hot potato over to you and talk about why is this thing so hard?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, this slide really hits home on the core reasons why so many RevOps initiatives either take too long or end up stalling. And as a sales and marketing leader myself, and talking to my colleagues, we're pretty good at what we do, right? Ultimately, sales knows how to win deals, and marketing knows how to drive pipeline. But when you ask us to model bookings capacity, link it to contribution margins, or explain financial forecasting deltas, most of us are going to be outside our comfort zone, and that's probably a fair statement. And it's not at the fault of those people, because really, frankly, it wasn't the world that we were trained within, right? Now, on the flip side, our friends in finance who own the plans are often inexperienced at the day-to-day go-to-market intuitions that they need. And so, do they really know what an SQL means in its context, or if a campaign delays, how that can impact next quarter's numbers? And so, what we look at is almost an ideal profile for this function. And it's if we put our wish list together, it's somebody who understands the inner workings of revenue, what makes a good ICP, how to get to prospect to the next stage. But they also need to have that strong financial acumen coupled with discipline of planning and forecasting. And when you put those together, in essence, what we're looking for is it's a unicorn, right? And there aren't many of those around. So the real opportunity is stop depending on trying to find a unicorn. Instead of expecting everyone to become that data scientist, what we should be doing is looking at uptooling the existing teams we have today and equipping sales and marketing and customer success leaders with insights that have already been modeled and contextualized and actionable. It's not about the amount of reports. A go-to-market leader wants to be presented with, here's the delta, here's why, and here's what to do next. And then we can go on and fix it. And it's at that very point when RevOps becomes a strategic advantage. Because now we're not reacting to misses, we're course correcting before they happen. So where does RevOps live? That's the big question. It isn't about throwing more people at the problem or building yet another spreadsheet or dashboard. It's about changing how we operate. So imagine every go-to-market leader walking into the Monday morning meeting, and they don't just have sort of anecdotal updates, but they have a shared view of what's on track, what's off, and what levers can be pulled right now to influence future outcomes. That's the shift. So from that sort of gut feel to an analytical insight with precision. It's also about the time, right? Companies spend weeks in planning cycles. I know, you got to October and you try to boil it down by the end of December and it flows into January. I mean, we're talking months. But on the other side, we scramble to react if things change, and with automation, that lag will start to disappear. You plan, the execution, the outcomes are all constantly aligned, and that's the transformation. It's not just about better data, but better decisions and made earlier.
I love that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that's a great way to paint illustrate the pain, so to speak. And I think, Dana, you've got the perspective, as we'll talk about here, on where do we need to kind of pivot ourselves and be pointed to start tackling this in a different way.
Right. I mean, that's the fundamental shift that Jeremy was talking about, is this function is moving to that guidance, right? It's becoming a strategic function, not a support function. And so what are the things that we need to equip that function with to get to that transformation? When we look at KPIs that actually guide the behavior of the business. So these aren't new, right? 95% of the KPIs that every B2B SaaS company runs on are the same. We don't have to create these from scratch or figure out how to calculate them. When we look at goals that are validated against that design that we talked about, we don't want to guess at our goals anymore, or just throw a random 20% better than last year up on the board. We need to have goals that will, if they're hit, we're going to hit our financial and strategic objectives. Forecasting. So this mega spreadsheet method of forecasting is over. If it's not over, it's going to be shortly over, right? So we have to have not only forecasts that are accurate, but they have to be based on data that everybody agrees on, right? Moving it out of the source system of truth and massaging it and coming up with your forecast is not going to work anymore. And the interesting thing that is that accurate forecasts, why haven't these transactional systems been able to produce accurate forecasts, even with Salesforce trying to use AI for years to get to them, and they still can't? The issue is they're transactional, CRM and marketing automation systems, they're transactional systems. You have to have an analytical environment to be able to provide the information to train a model to get to an accurate forecast. We've talked about this proactive intelligence. So as Jeremy said, it's not good enough to say, oh, I can tell you why we had a miss. We have to move to, we're going to have a miss 2 quarters from now. Here's what we have to do today to avoid that. Speed, right? Speed. What's the tenure of the average CRO and CMO and B2B SaaS? You need this yesterday. So, the frustrating part of the reality in many B2B organizations is it's going to take, 12 to 18 months to even build the visibility that you need over, right? You just need to turn it on. And, the board meeting, I'll say this one last thing, and then I'm going to hand it to you, Ian, to move from, RevOps to what is RevOps automation. But one key focus is your dashboards and data should be available all the time with refresh data. No more like 3 weeks before the board meeting, everybody's hair is on fire trying to piece together all the data and pull a story together. They're done. They're done. You spend your time looking at the data everybody agrees on and coming up with the strategies. That's that strategic efficiency that we're getting to with RevOps automation. So I'll hand it back over to you, Ian, to give us that definition.
Yeah, thanks. And I think RevOps automation, on the one hand, is a little bit self-explanatory as a term, right? It's automating and optimizing, your revenue, your go-to-market functions across those teams. So the key is that it's across sales, marketing, finance, customer success, and it's end-to-end, starting with your shared goals, working towards getting rid of the inefficiencies and the errors. So you get better forecasting, you get more transparency and visibility into how to accelerate your revenue growth, and provide transparency out to the rest of the organization. I say it's somewhat self-explanatory, and the other way to think about this is sort of a logical progression, is that it's not the first time we've seen this kind of step change. If you think back to what led to sales automation back in the late 90s, right? You had a sea change of internet-enabled B2B businesses really taking advantage of electronic communication. So moving away from offline, sales databases to actually automating sales processes. And then after that, you had, sort of the onslaught of email marketing, multi-channel digital marketing. And that led to companies like Marketo and Eloqua really getting marketing automation, taking marketing to the next level where they are today. And those have stuck, right? They're still with us today. And RevOps automation is the same thing. It's this sort of pervasive use of analytics and an expectation of transparency that just hasn't gotten quite there yet, because of the siloed nature of the go-to-market teams. That's part of what's driving this RevOps automation. So getting that unified planning, modeling, performance management, optimization across the go-to-market function, like I said before, marketing, sales, finance, customer success. That's what's driving this. So it's not something that we haven't seen before in the past. It's just the next logical evolution of our, way to apply technology and collaboration in the go-to-market function. There's a lot to it, though. I think Jeremy's background and perspective here as a revenue leader, I think it serves you well to share, what are the fundamental parts of that, and then what does the technology look like around that as well?
Yeah. I mean, this is where things start to sort of click, right? So within these 5 pillars, there are 3 words that really stand out to me, and that's alignment, efficiency, and predictability. And they're not just like buzzwords, right? These are words that every CEO, CFO, CRO, CMO, and board are begging for. And this is where RevOps automation finally gets to deliver. So alignment, right? It means that your targets aren't just aspirational, they're achievable. And that's pretty important, right? Because the entire go-to-market team is working on the same page and everybody has clear ownership and resourcing. Efficiency is about output per dollar. RevOps automation helps you deploy headcount. It helps you with budget and the effort. And the effort actually ends up sort of moving that needle. So there's no more guessing where you are going to scale, or if you have to, where you're going to cut. And predictability. This is probably the game changer. You're not just forecasting what you might think could happen. You're building a model that tells you what will happen. And unless you act, and if you need to, what actions you can change, or you can make to change the outcome. Think of it this way: these pillars turn RevOps from a support function into a strategic command center for revenue. So if we go to the next slide. So this is, how do we make this a reality for you, right? This is the platform that we've built to operationalize everything that we've talked about. This is years in the making, with experience of a collective sum of people, and at its core, it's a B2B operating system that aligns everyone, from finance to sales to marketing to customer success, all around that shared plan. And we're talking about lean planning, automated modeling, industry proven templates, and predictable intelligence. And it's not just buried in the dashboards. It's delivered directly to decision makers when and where they need it, right? One of the things I love about it isn't just build your own toolkit, right? It is curated. It's fast. You're not going to spend months customizing it. You're literally up and running in weeks. And I think that's one of the shifts we're looking at is moving RevOps from that build and maintain to actually putting that to one side and taking that data, ingesting it, and delivering actionable insights, right? And I think it's because we're grounded in those actual KPIs that Dana talked about, not just activity metrics. You're finally managing the business the way the investors expected you to, by contribution, by conversion, by ROI, and it's a smarter way to run your go-to-market business.
And I'll just throw in there, you talked about speed, Jeremy. That is fundamental, right? We're turning on a RevOps foundation that everybody has access to immediately. And the reality is, B2B software companies have been doing this for decades. Every process is different, but every process is the same, right? Our template, the templates that should be in a RevOps automation platform should be curated from subject matter experts and just turned on, and then configured around the edges. So I think having that model, that analytical data model, every B2B software company needs the same data. Every CRM and marketing automation system, every transactional system gives us the same data that we need in an analytical environment to produce these things. It doesn't matter what your underlying transactional systems are. So anyway, thank you, Ian. We've moved over, and I'm conscious of our time here, but I would love to share some of the things that we've seen as B2B software companies have employed RevOps automation. And we typically look at metrics with time in mind, right? Because the faster we can get to these outcomes, the more valuable that RevOps automation platform is. So what you're looking at right now, this 3.8x revenue growth. So this is from a $30 million B2B software company in the life sciences industry. So it's a little bit dated, but they're actually about to post their best quarter ever coming up. And what you're seeing there is the outcome of within 9 months, this company was posting better than 3x growth, so better than the Analyst benchmark. And they used RevOps automation as the first step in creating the discipline. So this is really important. A lot of companies will look at reporting as an afterthought, but using performance design and tackling actuals to model, this intelligence allowed this company to immediately have better rep coaching, higher forecast accuracy, and evidence for where they needed to invest to improve marketing contributions. So this data-driven approach is actually what they run their board meetings with. So their PE firm loves this. It's complete transparency, and they have data-supported conversations rather than opinion. So there's a culture shift going on. Let's go to the next one, Ian. So these are results from about a $200 million B2B SaaS company in the healthcare IT space. So what I love about this, because I have been a chief marketing officer in earlier in my career, so the marketing metrics are near and dear to my heart. But so this, what you're looking at is, you see this title, last touch response KPIs. So basically what you're looking at are marketing sourced opportunities on the left-hand side and non-marketing sourced opportunities on the right-hand side. And what you see are the sales velocity metrics for those two cohorts. And we see this almost every time. So yes, we are all about marketing contribution and contribution to bookings and contribution to closed won, because that's the strategic piece that marketing offers. But marketing also has a huge influence on sales velocity, win rates, cycle times, and even opportunity value. So this is a fundamental thing in continuing to optimize marketing investment. Thank you, Ian. So this is, I love this story. Well, I love them all, but this is a $20 million B2B SaaS company in the manufacturing space. So when we first started working with them, they didn't know why their deals were stalling. So they were seeing marketing performing really well at the top of the funnel, and they weren't seeing the late stage deals. So when we turned on ayeQ, immediately we saw the problem. On the left-hand side, what you're looking at is the conversion, the stage-to-stage conversion rate, which we're tracking all the time, and the stages on the x-axis. So what you see is in their third sales stage, which was the proposal stage, they had a 39% conversion rate. And that tells us quite a few things. One is really low sales productivity, right? Because when you're dropping 65% of your opportunities that far down the sales process, all of the effort for those 65% prior to it dropping out is wasted. So key productivity issue. So when we identified this, the CEO created a tiger team around their proposal process, and they actually found mistakes in that process. And within a quarter, they had improved it 20 points. And if you think about improving your conversion rate 3/4 of the way through your sales process by 20 points, that's a huge impact on the top line. Okay, sorry, Ian, now you can change it. All right. So last example here, because I know we have a bunch of questions that we want to get to. So this is another example of a healthcare IT SaaS company. So, talk about long, complex sales cycles, do B2B SaaS, and then put it in the healthcare IT industry, and you got real complexity there. But it shows what's possible when marketing campaigns are optimized. So, this company gained complete visibility into campaign performance on MQL generation. So they were able to dramatically increase their MQL flow within just a few quarters. So importantly, they did it with the same marketing budget. So this is that efficiency where we know where we're going to get these MQLs, these SQLs, how we're going to be feeding these new opportunities into the pipeline. And we're using the same level of resources, we're just reallocating them into a more optimal configuration. So again, higher than the analyst benchmark. So just a few examples of what we're seeing and why, we think this is a really exciting space. So Ian, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's awesome. I think some of these numbers, when you look at them, almost jump off the page as like, well, that's not how can that even be? But when you really hone in on specifically what's going on there and what are the sort of stones that were turned over to find the opportunities to make those changes, I think that's pretty tangible and impactful. Before we turn it over to questions, I kind of had put this in as my sort of takeaways from this. First of all, the role of RevOps is fundamentally changing. So if you're in RevOps, you need to be ready, right? If you're working with RevOps, we'll talk about the C-suite here in a second. You need to understand that it's changing as well. You need to shift away from building and maintaining systems and towards performance, right? If you want to have a seat at the C-suite table with the board, this is how you get there. You don't want to be, as I think Jeremy said to me the other day, you don't want to be thought of as the person who's just constantly updating plumbing, right? You want to be part of the team that's improving the performance. So if you're in RevOps, think about, all right, how much of my time am I spending on building and connecting systems versus actually being part of the conversation? If you're in the C-suite, your expectations of RevOps should evolve as well. You should expect them to come to you with identifying problems and solutions, as opposed to just providing the data that you're asking for. You need them to tell you what the data is that you should be looking at, as opposed to having them focus on finding the data that you tell them that's important. So with all that in mind, this is a big change that's going on, and there's a lot more under the covers to that that we could talk about ad nauseum. And I think Dana, as a thought leader in this space, has published a lot of content on the ayeQ blog. So if you don't ever check that out, follow us on LinkedIn or connect on the blog on our website. We also, and I've got a couple of questions here that I'm gonna pick off. We've got quite a few, but I'm gonna pick off a couple of the ones that I think are most relevant for the sake of time. I'll leave this on in the background here. If you're interested in speaking with any of our RevOps experts, we've got a link, a Calendly link that you can just set up a quick free consultation on that. So don't miss the opportunity, or share this with someone else in your team to do that. Couple of questions that I wanted to get to here. Jeremy, we talked a little bit on the slide, teeing this up. The question is, where do you see the most success for RevOps living in an organization? And I think that's probably a reaction to that slide that we showed the survey data, but where do you think it should live?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you hate to give the answer of it depends, but there is a little of that to think through. I think as we look at our customer base and we look at the most successful customers and where it sits within their organizations, the depends is on how large the company is, and if we measure it just on sort of revenue purposes, I think anything below probably 40-50 million in ARR, that position should really have direct linkage to the CEO and the CFO. And I say that because more often than not, the leaders in sales and marketing are wearing multiple hats. They're not just hiring and training teams, but they're also out there in the field with their sleeves rolled up, but partially sort of individual contributor as well as manager. And I think the buck stops at the CEO and the CFO in those companies in that size. When we look at our larger customers, and those are sort of in that $80-100 million plus, and the CRO is really in charge of all of revenue, and that definition is that marketing reports to CRO, sales reports to CRO, and customer success reports to CRO. I think the buck stops at the CRO, and they should have that report. And ultimately, I think, going back to your earlier point, I think RevOps, as it is evolving, becomes an equal peer at the table, and as opposed to the sort of behind the curtain admin role. This is really strategic, where you'd love to be able to sit in a board meeting and have RevOps sitting there and asking where are the challenges over the next 6 to 18 months, and then collectively as a board and the C-level, what can we do to overcome those challenges today? And I think ultimately that's what we're driving RevOps automation towards.
Good stuff. Dana, for you, you mentioned directional guidance. Can you explain directional guidance just a little bit more?
Sure. Let's see. I'm trying to think of how to make it a little bit more concrete. So just in, general, you'll see analytics platforms out there that give you lots and lots of charts and data, and they expect you to interpret that data. So if you looked at one of the examples that I had given you before, the one that had the sales stages with the conversion rates by stage. So typically what an analytics platform would show you is sales cycle length, overall sales cycle length, right? Because CRMs have a really, really hard time tracking stage to stage conversion rate. It takes not only the granular tracking of data, but it takes the logic to be able to interpret all the different edge cases. So you go from here's your sales cycle length to here is your stage to stage conversion rate. And I am going to not only color code the issue, right? Because you saw where's my problem? It was in orange. You're not only going to show that, but you're going to compare that to all the other options you have for impacting your revenue, right? And then a RevOps automation platform is going to serve up, you need to focus on the proposal stage of this particular revenue stream. That's your most important thing to look on to improve top line performance. That's the difference between just passive analytics and directional guidance. It's telling you what are the most important next steps to actually change the outcomes. Did I hit it, Ian?
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. It's shifting away from here's some data to here's what you need to know and what you need to do. So I think that's fantastic. Last one we'll hit, and then we'll cover some of these. We'll make sure to chase down answers directly to people who ask the rest of the questions. How long does it take to implement a solution like ayeQ? And Dana, maybe I'll point that one in your direction.
Happy to answer that. So one of the things that is a theme for RevOps automation is speed. If you look at we need to turn on a RevOps discipline versus building everything from scratch. And that's what a RevOps automation platform needs to do. It needs to use these best practice workflows. How do you create your go-to-market plan that just contains enough for everybody to know exactly why they need to do it, right? What we call this lean approach to planning. Templates, right? There's a renewal process, there's a direct sales process, there is a partner process. We know what these processes are across 99% of the cases for B2B software companies. We don't have to stop and do it from scratch. So, and finally, this piece of a unified data model that already knows all the data that needs to be ingested across all the transactional systems and pulling it into an analytical environment. So those are really the three key pieces. For ayeQ, we're able to do that in 5 to 15 business days. So that, you compare days to 12 to 24 months if you actually ever get there. And that's the huge shift that RevOps automation allows.
Yeah, that's impressive, and I think a great way to be calibrating your expectations if you're looking at how can RevOps get to that seat at the table, or how can RevOps provide that directional guidance. I think if you're not in RevOps, that's the expectation that you should have, is this kind of transformation should be happening now as opposed to over a long period of time. So really awesome there. So like I said, we're going to finish the rest of these questions and send some follow-up one-on-one with the people who asked them. In the meantime, thank you so much, everyone. We will send out a link to the recording of this. Dana and Jeremy, thank you very much. I think your insights here are really appreciated, and the background from which you draw those insights is pretty impressive. So thanks so much. Thanks everyone for joining, and have a great day.